The stars looked peaceful that night. They always did, but Admiral knew better. He stood on the bridge of the S-Phoenix, Earth's flagship, and watched the darkness of space through the wide observation window. His hands were clasped behind his back. His face showed nothing. "Admiral," said Lieutenant from her station. Her voice was steady, but could hear the fear hiding underneath. "Long-range sensors are picking up multiple contacts, over 900 vessels. They will reach Earth orbit in 6 hours." Did not move. He had expected this day for 20 years. Every military leader on Earth had prepared for it. The Galactic Coalition had sent warnings for months. Humanity had ignored them all. "Show me," he said quietly. The main screen flickered to life. Red dots filled the display like a swarm of angry insects. Each dot was a warship. Each warship carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon, and they were all coming for Earth. Captain Minu walked up to stand beside. He was younger than the Admiral by 15 years, but war had aged his eyes. 947 ships confirmed, sir. The Coalition sent everything they have." "Not everything," replied. "This is just the first wave. They want to make a statement." Minu looked at the screen. His jaw tightened. "Our fleet has 12 ships, Admiral, 12 against nearly 1,000. The math is not in our favor." Allowed himself a small smile. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who knew something others did not. "Math rarely tells the whole story, Captain." Across the bridge, officers worked at their stations. Some typed commands, others monitored systems. All of them were afraid, but none of them showed it. They were the best humanity had to offer. They had trained for years. They had sworn to protect Earth. And now that oath would be tested. On the planet below, cities were going dark. Emergency protocols were in effect. Billions of people were moving to underground shelters that had been built in secret over the past century. The governments of Earth had always known this day would come. They had prepared in ways the galaxy could not imagine. President sat in the war room beneath the mountains of Korea. Screens surrounded her, showing feeds from satellites, news channels, and military installations around the world. Her advisors spoke in urgent voices, but she remained calm. She had been calm since the first warning arrived. "The Coalition fleet has entered the solar system," said General. He was an old soldier with gray hair and scars on his face. "They passed Jupiter's orbit 20 minutes ago." "What are their demands?" asked. "The same as before, complete surrender, disarmament of all human military forces, integration into the Coalition as a servant species." His voice carried disgust. "They want us to become their slaves." Nodded slowly. She had read the demands many times. The Coalition believed humans were primitive. They saw Earth as a small planet with weak technology. They thought 12 ships were all humanity could build. They were wrong. "Open a channel to Admiral," she said. The screen in front of her changed to show the bridge of the Phoenix. His face appeared as calm as always. Behind him, officers moved with purpose. "Madam President said." "Admiral, what is your assessment?" "The Coalition fleet is powerful. Their weapons are advanced. Their shields are strong." Paused. "But they are overconfident. They expect us to surrender or die quickly. They have not prepared for a real fight." "Can our 12 ships hold them?" His eyes met hers through the screen. "No, Madam President. 12 ships cannot hold them, but 12 ships are not all we have." Felt her heart beat faster. The moment had finally come. Decades of planning, building, and waiting were about to reach their end. "You believe it is time?" "I believe we have no choice." In the war room, generals and advisors exchanged confused looks. They knew about Earth's defense fleet. They knew about the shelters and the emergency plans, but very few knew about the real secret, the one buried beneath the ocean, the one that had been sleeping for 200 years. Stood up from her chair. Her voice carried across the room with absolute authority. "Contact the Pacific Command. Authorization code Omega 7. Wake the Titan. Silence fell over the war room. General's face went pale. He was one of the few who knew. He had seen the files. He had visited the site once, long ago, and he had never forgotten what lay hidden in the darkness below. "Yes, Madam President," he whispered. Far above Earth, the Coalition fleet continued its approach. On the command ship, General watched the blue planet grow larger on his screen. He was tall, with gray skin and 4 arms. His species had conquered 100 worlds. Earth would be the 101st. "The humans have 12 ships," said his second-in-command, a smaller creature with yellow eyes. "Our scouts report primitive weapons, basic shields, no threat." Laughed. It was an ugly sound. 12 ships. They send 12 ships against the might of the Coalition. These humans are either brave or stupid. "Perhaps both, General." "It does not matter. In 6 hours their planet will burn, their people will kneel, and their pathetic fleet will be dust." Leaned back in his chair. "Open a channel. I want to speak to their leader. I want to see the fear in their eyes." The communication was established. Image appeared on the bridge of the Phoenix, and Admiral's image appeared on the Coalition command ship. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Human, I am General of the Galactic Coalition. You know why we have come." Nodded slightly. "I do." "Then you know your situation is hopeless. Surrender now and some of your people may survive. Resist and we will destroy everything. Your cities, your ships, your entire species." Looked at the alien general. His expression did not change. His voice remained steady. "I understand your position, General, but I must decline your offer." Smile faded. "You decline? You have 12 ships, I have nearly 1,000. You cannot win this fight." "Perhaps," said, "but we will fight anyway." Stared at the human for a long moment. He had conquered many worlds. He had seen many species beg for mercy, but this human showed no fear, no panic, only calm certainty. It made uncomfortable, though he would never admit it. "So be it," growled. "You have 1 hour to prepare. When that hour ends, we will attack, and your world will learn what happens to those who defy the Coalition." The screen went dark. On the bridge of the Phoenix, Captain Minu let out a long breath. "1 hour, Admiral. What do we do?" Turned to look at Earth through the window. Somewhere down there, beneath the waves of the Pacific Ocean, something ancient was waking up, something that would change everything. "We wait," said quietly, "and we watch the galaxy learn to fear us." The hour moved slowly. Each minute felt like an eternity. On the bridge of the Phoenix, Admiral watched his crew work in focused silence. They checked weapons. They reinforced shields. They prepared for a battle they could not win. But knew something they did not. Help was coming. Lieutenant turned from her station. "Admiral, I am receiving reports from all Earth defense ships. All 12 vessels are in position. Weapons are charged. Shields are at maximum." "Good," said. "Tell them to hold formation. Do not fire until I give the order." "Yes, sir." Captain Minu stood nearby, studying the tactical display. The red dots of the Coalition fleet had moved closer. They would reach firing range in 43 minutes. "Admiral, permission to speak freely." "Granted." "What are we waiting for? The President said something about waking the Titan. What does that mean?" Looked at his captain. Minu was a good officer, loyal, brave, smart. He deserved to know the truth, but the truth was classified at the highest level. Only a handful of people on Earth knew about what lay beneath the Pacific Ocean. "You will see soon enough," Captain said. "Trust me." Minu wanted to ask more questions, but he held his tongue. He trusted the Admiral. He had no choice. Deep beneath Earth's surface, in a facility that did not exist on any map, Commander received the order. She stood in a control room carved from solid rock, surrounded by officers who had spent their entire careers preparing for this moment. The message appeared on her screen. Authorization code Omega 7. Wake the Titan. His hands trembled slightly as she typed the confirmation code. This was it. After 2 centuries of silence, the Titan would rise. She turned to face her team. "Begin the awakening sequence," she said. Her voice was calm, but her heart raced. "Power up all primary systems. Initialize the main reactor. Prepare for ascent." The officers moved with practiced precision. They had run this drill 1,000 times, but this was not a drill. This was real. The fate of Earth depended on what happened in the next hour. Lieutenant Bora pressed a series of buttons on her console. Primary systems coming online. Reactor charging. Estimated time to full power, 22 minutes. "Too slow," said. "Push the reactor to emergency levels. We need to be ready in 15. "Commander, emergency levels could damage the systems. We have never tested." "I know what we have never tested." Eyes were hard. "But if we do not launch in time, there will be nothing left to test. Do it." Bora nodded and adjusted the controls. The floor beneath their feet began to vibrate as ancient engines roared to life. Somewhere in the darkness below, a giant was waking from a very long sleep. On the surface, the Pacific Ocean looked calm. Waves rolled gently under the moonlight. Ships sailed on their normal routes, unaware of what lay beneath them. But that was about to change. In the war room beneath Korea, President monitored the situation. Screens showed feeds from every continent. People were moving to shelters. Military forces were mobilizing. The world was preparing for war. General approached her with a tablet in his hands. "Madam President, the Titan systems are coming online. Commander reports 15 minutes to full power." "And the coalition fleet?" 38 minutes until they reach firing range." Did the math in her head. It would be close, too close. "Tell to push harder. We need every second we can get." "Yes, Madam President." Paused. "Should we inform the public? Let them know that we have a chance?" Shook her head slowly. "Not yet. If we tell them about the Titan and it fails, their hope will turn to despair. Let them see it with their own eyes. Let the whole galaxy see it." In space, General grew impatient. He paced the bridge of his command ship, his 4 arms clasped behind his back. The hour was almost over and the humans had not surrendered. He had expected them to beg, to plead for mercy, but they remained silent. "General," said his second-in-command, "the humans are holding formation. They show no signs of retreat." "Foolish creatures," stopped packing and stared at the blue planet on the screen. "They actually believe they can fight us. They actually believe their 12 ships can stop our fleet. Perhaps they are bluffing. Perhaps they hope we will hesitate." "We do not hesitate. The coalition does not know fear." Turned to his communications officer. "Open a channel to the human fleet. Final warning." The channel opened and once again Admiral appeared on the screen. He looked exactly the same as before. Calm, patient, unafraid. "Human," said, "the hour is almost over. This is your last chance. Surrender now or face destruction." Tilted his head slightly. "General, I appreciate your concern for our well-being, but I must inform you that Earth will not surrender. Not today, not ever." Slammed one of his fists against his chair. "You are insane. You cannot win. Do you want your entire species to die?" "No," said quietly. "I want your entire fleet to leave. That is what I want." Laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Leave? After coming all this way? After bringing the might of the coalition to your doorstep? You think we will just turn around and go home?" "I think you should," leaned forward slightly. "Because what is about to happen will change everything you believe about humanity, and the coalition, and the galaxy itself." Felt a chill run down his spine. He did not understand why. The human was bluffing. He had to be bluffing. There was no way a primitive species with 12 ships could threaten the coalition. But something in his eyes made hesitate. Something old and dangerous lurked behind that calm expression. "You have 10 minutes," said finally. "Then we attack." The channel closed. On the Phoenix, Captain Minu let out a breath he did not know he was holding. "Admiral, what is happening? What are we waiting for?" Before could answer, Lieutenant shouted from her station. "Admiral, I am detecting massive energy readings from Earth. Source is the Pacific Ocean." All eyes turned to the main screen. The view shifted to show Earth's Pacific Ocean. For a moment, nothing happened. The water looked normal, peaceful. Then the ocean began to glow. Deep beneath the waves, the Titan was rising. Its engines burned with power that had not been used for 200 years. Its hull, 40 kilometers long, pushed through rock and water and darkness. It was coming. Commander watched the ascent on her monitors. Main hull clearing the seabed, structural integrity holding, 20 seconds to surface breach. The facility shook around her. Dust fell from the ceiling. Officers gripped their consoles to stay standing, but nobody ran, nobody panicked. They had waited their whole lives for this moment. 10 seconds, Bora reported. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The Pacific Ocean exploded. A wall of water rose into the air as something impossibly large broke through the surface. It was like watching a mountain climb out of the sea. Ships nearby were pushed aside by the massive waves. Satellites above captured the moment and broadcast it across the galaxy. The Titan had awakened. On the Coalition command ship, General stared at his screen in disbelief. His mouth hung open. His 4 arms hung limp at his sides. He could not understand what he was seeing. What is that?" he whispered. His second-in-command checked his sensors. His yellow eyes went wide with fear. It is a ship, General, a single ship, but its size. It is 40 kilometers long. It carries enough firepower to destroy our entire fleet 10 times over." His legs felt weak. He grabbed his chair for support. "Impossible. The humans are primitive. They cannot have such technology." But the evidence was right in front of him. Rising from Earth's ocean, climbing into the sky, was the largest warship the galaxy had ever seen, and it was heading straight for his fleet. On the bridge of the Phoenix, Admiral allowed himself a real smile for the first time in years. "Captain Minu," he said, "allow me to introduce you to the Earth's first and only." Minu could not speak. He could only stare at the massive vessel as it rose through the clouds and entered orbit. It made the Phoenix look like a toy. It made the entire Coalition fleet look like insects. "My God," Minu finally managed to say, "we had this the whole time." "The whole time," confirmed, "hidden, waiting, ready." The galaxy was about to change forever. The rose through Earth's atmosphere like a creature from ancient legend. Water still dripped from its massive hull, turning to ice in the cold of space. Its surface was dark gray, covered with armor plating thick enough to stop any weapon known to the galaxy. Along its sides, thousands of weapon ports glowed with barely contained energy. Commander stood on the bridge of watching the stars appear through the observation window. After 2 centuries buried beneath the ocean, that was finally where it belonged. In space, ready for war. "All systems stable," reported Lieutenant Bora from her station. "Hull integrity at 100%, weapons charging, shields activating, fighter bays standing by." Nodded. The ascent had been rough, but the old ship had held together. The engineers who built it 200 years ago had done their job well, very well. "Open a channel to Admiral," she ordered. The screen flickered and his face appeared. Behind him, the bridge of the Phoenix was alive with activity, but himself looked calm, almost pleased. "Commander," he said, "welcome to orbit. It is good to finally have you with us." "It is good to finally be here," Admiral glanced at her tactical display. The Coalition fleet was still approaching, though they had slowed down significantly. "I see our guests have noticed us." "They have. General seems to be having trouble forming words at the moment." Allowed himself a small smile. "Shall we introduce ourselves properly?" "With pleasure, Admiral." On the Coalition command ship, General was indeed having trouble. He stared at the massive human vessel on his screen, trying to understand how this was possible. His intelligence reports had said nothing about this. His scouts had seen nothing. The humans were supposed to be primitive, weak, easy to conquer. "General," his second-in-command said nervously, "the human ship is hailing us. They wish to speak." Straightened his posture. He would not show fear. He could not show fear. The coalition did not fear anyone. Put them through. The screen changed to show the bridge of the commander stood in the center, her arms crossed over her chest. Behind her, officers worked at stations that stretched as far as the eye could see. The bridge alone was larger than most coalition ships. "General," said, her voice was cold. "My name is Commander of the Earth Defense Force. I command the. I believe you have already met Admiral." His image appeared besides. He nodded politely. "General, as you can see, the situation has changed somewhat." His mind raced. He tried to calculate the odds to find some advantage, some weakness he could exploit. But the numbers did not lie. The human was 40 kilometers long. It carried weapons powerful enough to crack planets, and it was now sitting between his fleet and Earth. "This changes nothing," said, though his voice lacked its earlier confidence. "The coalition has thousands of ships. This is just one vessel. We can overwhelm it with numbers." "Can you?" asked. She tapped a control on her console. "Let me show you something, General." The tactical display on ship updated with new information. The human was not just a single vessel. It was a mobile base, a floating fortress. Its hull contained hangars filled with 10,000 fighter craft. Its weapons included plasma cannons, missile batteries, and something the coalition sensors could not identify. "Our main weapons are called gravity lances," explained. "They bend space itself to create focused beams of gravitational force. One shot can crush a coalition warship like paper. We have 50 of them." Felt his blood run cold. 50 gravity lances, each one capable of destroying his ships without any effort, and 10,000 fighters to support them. "You are bluffing," he said weakly. "This technology is impossible." 200 years ago your coalition visited Earth," said. His voice was soft, but his words hit like hammers. "You came with a small fleet. You demanded our surrender. You thought we were primitive and weak." Remembered he had been a young officer then. He had watched the first contact from a distance. The humans had seemed so small, so fragile. "Your leaders decided to give us time," continued. "They thought we would never develop technology to match the coalition. They thought we would remain easy prey. They were wrong." "Very wrong," added. "We spent 2 centuries preparing for this day. We built the in secret, hiding it beneath our ocean. We developed weapons your scientists said were impossible. We trained officers who have dreamed of nothing but this moment." On the crew members moved through corridors that stretched for kilometers. Engineers monitored reactor cores that burned with the power of small suns. Pilots climbed into fighters that had never seen combat but were hungry for it. Lieutenant led his squadron through the final checks. 50 fighters, each one armed with weapons that could punch through coalition shields. They had trained in simulators for years, fighting virtual enemies, preparing for the real thing. "Squadron 7, report status," said into his communicator. "All fighters ready, Lieutenant." "All weapons charged." "All pilots standing by." Smiled inside his helmet. They were ready. Earth was ready. The only question now was whether the coalition would be smart enough to back down. In the war room beneath Korea, President watched the standoff unfold. There was now fully visible on satellite feeds, its massive hull reflecting sunlight like a second moon. People around the world were emerging from their shelters to look up at the sky in amazement. "The coalition fleet has stopped," General reported. "They are holding position just outside weapon range." "Good," said. "They are thinking. That is better than shooting." "What if they decide to attack anyway? What if they believe their numbers can overcome our?" considered the question. It was possible. The coalition was proud. They had never lost a war. They might decide to fight rather than retreat. If they attack, she said finally, they will learn what humanity is truly capable of, and the lesson will be very, very painful. On the coalition command ship, General held a council with his senior officers. They gathered around a holographic display showing the human in terrifying detail. "We can still win," said Commander, a veteran of 50 campaigns. "Yes, the human ship is large. Yes, it carries many weapons, but we have nearly 1,000 vessels. If we attack from all sides simultaneously, we would lose 2/3 of our fleet," another officer interrupted. "Maybe more, those gravity lances. We have nothing that can stop them." "And if we retreat," demanded, "what then? The coalition has never retreated. If we turn back now, every species in the galaxy will question our power." The officers argued back and forth. Some wanted to attack, some wanted to negotiate, some wanted to call for reinforcements, but remained silent, staring at the image of the. He was thinking about what the humans had said. 200 years. They had spent 200 years preparing for this fight. They had built in secret. They had developed impossible technology. They had trained an entire generation of soldiers. And they had waited. That was what scared the most. The patience, the discipline, the cold, calculating strategy that had kept this weapon hidden for 2 centuries. These were not the actions of a primitive species. These were the actions of a predator. A very intelligent, very dangerous predator. "Enough," said quietly. The arguing stopped. All eyes turned to him. "Open a channel to the humans. I wish to speak with their president." His officers exchanged surprised looks, but no one objected. The channel was opened. President appeared on the screen. She sat in her chair with the calm dignity of a leader who knew she had already won. Behind her, generals and advisors watched in silence. "General," she said, "I was hoping you would call." Forced himself to meet her eyes. "President, it seems we have underestimated your species." "You have," agreed. "But that mistake does not have to be fatal, not for your fleet, not for you." His jaw tightened. "What do you propose?" "Leave," said simply. "Take your fleet and go. Return to coalition space. Tell your leaders what you have seen here today. Tell them that Earth is not prey. Earth is not weak. Earth is not a world to be conquered." "And if we refuse?" Leaned forward slightly. Her eyes were hard as steel. "Then your fleet will become a demonstration, and the entire galaxy will watch." Looked at the massive floating in Earth's orbit. He looked at his own fleet, suddenly seeming so small and fragile. He thought about his family back home, his children, his legacy. "I need to consult with my government," he said finally. "You have 1 hour," replied. "Choose wisely." The screen went dark. In the silence that followed, realized something had fundamentally changed, not just for this battle, not just for the coalition, for the entire galaxy. The hour passed slowly. The commander watched the tactical display and waited. The coalition fleet remained motionless, their ships arranged in perfect formation. But their weapons were still powered. Their shields were still active. They had not decided yet. "Commander," Lieutenant Bora said quietly, "I am detecting heavy communication traffic between the coalition ships. They are arguing." "Good," replied. "Let them argue. Every minute they debate is a minute they are not shooting." On the Phoenix, Admiral had similar thoughts. He stood before the observation window, watching the float nearby like a protective guardian. The made his flagship look like a small boat beside a mountain. Captain Minu approached him. "Admiral, the crew is asking questions. They want to know how this is possible. How did we hide something this large for so long?" Turned from the window. "Do you know the history of our species, Captain?" "Some of it, sir. Humans have always been good at building in secret. We built underground bunkers, hidden bases, secret weapons. It is in our nature to prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. Gestured toward the first coalition visit taught us something important. We were not alone in the universe, and the universe was not friendly. So we built the confirmed. The greatest engineering project in human history. Thousands of scientists worked on it. Millions of workers built it, and billions of people kept it secret for 200 years. Minyu shook his head in wonder. How is that possible? How did no one ever reveal it? Because every human understood the stakes. If the coalition learned about our weapon too soon, they would have destroyed us before we were ready. The secret had to be kept, and so it was kept. In the war room, President was receiving updates from around the world. The emergence of the had been broadcast to every nation. People were celebrating in the streets. They had lived in fear of the coalition for generations. Now, for the first time, they had hope. Reports from the European Union, General said. Public morale is the highest it has been in 50 years. Same reports from the Americas, Africa, and Asia. And the coalition asked. Still debating. Their communications are encrypted, but our analysts believe there is significant disagreement among their commanders. Nodded thoughtfully. Disagreement is good. It means some of them understand the situation. They know they cannot win this fight. What if they attack anyway? Then we will finish what they started. His voice was cold. The is not just a defensive weapon, General. It is a message that says humanity will never bow to anyone. On the coalition command ship, General's deadline was approaching. His officers had argued for the entire hour. Some wanted to fight. Some wanted to flee. None could agree on the best course of action. We have 10 minutes left, Commander said. We must decide now. Stood at the center of the bridge, surrounded by his advisors. He had spent his entire life serving the coalition. He had won countless battles. He had conquered dozens of worlds. But this was different. This was not a battle he could win. If we fight, he said slowly, we will lose. The human is too powerful. Our fleet would be destroyed and Earth would remain free. So we retreat, demanded. We run away like cowards. We retreat, confirmed. But not as cowards, as strategists. We return to coalition space. We report what we have seen, and we prepare for a very different kind of relationship with humanity. The officers fell silent. Retreat was unthinkable. The coalition had never retreated, but the alternative was worse, complete destruction. Very well, said finally, I will give the order. Before he could speak, an alarm blared across the bridge. Officers shouted in panic. The tactical display lit up with warning symbols. What is happening? Demanded. The human, an officer cried. Its weapon systems are activating. All 50 gravity lances are charging. His blood turned to ice. He looked at the display and saw this weapon's ports glowing with terrible energy. Each gravity lance was aimed at a different section of his fleet. If they fired, hundreds of ships would be destroyed in seconds. They are targeting us, the officer continued. Every ship in our fleet is locked. We cannot evade. We cannot hide. The commander watched the weapons display with satisfaction. Every gravity lance was aimed. Every target was locked. One command from her would end the coalition fleet. Open a channel, she ordered. Let them hear this. The channel opened, connecting to every coalition ship simultaneously. His voice echoed across the enemy fleet. This is commander of your weapons are no match for ours. Your shields cannot stop our fire. Your fleet cannot escape our range. She paused, letting the words sink in. You have two choices. Power down your weapons and leave our system, or stay and become a lesson for the rest of the galaxy. On the Phoenix, Admiral added his voice. General, the hour is up. What is your decision? Looked at the display. 947 ships, all of them targeted, all of them helpless. He thought about the soldiers under his command, the families waiting for them back home. the legacy he had built over decades of service. And he thought about the humans, a species that had hidden this weapon for 2 centuries, a species that had waited patiently for the right moment, a species that was now giving him a chance to leave with his life and his fleet intact. "Power down all weapons," said quietly. General stared at him in shock. "Power down all weapons," shouted. "All ships, this is a direct order from the fleet commander. Power down weapons immediately." Across the coalition fleet, officers hesitated. Some obeyed right away, others waited for confirmation. But one by one, the weapons went silent. Shield generators switched to standby, engines prepared for departure. On Earth, billions of people watched as the coalition fleet began to turn away. The massive warships that had seemed so terrifying now looked small and defeated. They moved slowly at first, then faster, heading for the edge of the solar system. "They are leaving," General said in disbelief. "They are actually leaving." President closed her eyes and let out a breath she had been holding for hours. "It is over, for now." "For now." Opened her eyes. "The coalition will not forget this day. They will study they will develop new weapons. They will come back eventually." "But we will be ready," said. "Yes, we will be ready." Commander watched the enemy fleet retreat. The gravity lances remained locked on target until the last coalition ship had left Earth's orbit. Only then did she give the order to power down. "Stand down weapons, all hands stand down." She allowed herself a small smile. "We did it." Lieutenant Bora laughed with relief. "We actually did it. We faced the entire coalition fleet and made them run." "Not run," corrected. "Retreat. There is a difference. Running is panic. Retreat is strategy. The coalition is planning their next move even now." "Do you think they will come back?" Looked at the stars through the observation window. Somewhere out there the coalition was regrouping, planning, preparing. They would return. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next year, but they would return. "They will come back," she said. "But next time we will have more than one. Next time we will have a fleet of our own, a fleet powerful enough to take the war to them." Bora nodded slowly. "The galaxy will never underestimate us again." "No," agreed, "they will not." On the Phoenix, Admiral watched the last coalition ships disappear into the darkness of space. Captain Minu stood beside him, still trying to process everything that had happened. "What now, Admiral?" Turned to face his captain. "Now we begin the real work. The coalition knows our secret. They will tell the rest of the galaxy. Every species will know what we can do." "Is that not what we wanted?" "It is exactly what we wanted," smiled. "The galaxy was silent when we were weak. Now they will be silent for a very different reason." Minu understood. The silence of the galaxy had once been the silence of predators watching prey. Now it was the silence of predators realizing they were not the only hunters in the forest. "Let them be silent," Minu said quietly. "Let them be silent," agreed, "and let them remember this day forever." The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Every species with the technology to receive transmissions saw the same images. The massive human rising from the ocean. The coalition fleet turning away in defeat. The small blue planet that had revealed itself as a power beyond imagination. On the trading world of Nexus Prime, merchants stopped their business to stare at screens showing the footage. A human, 40 kilometers long, weapons that bent space itself, technology that the coalition had said was impossible. "How is this possible?" a trader asked his companion. "The humans were supposed to be primitive. They were supposed to be easy prey." His companion shook his head slowly. "Perhaps they were never primitive. Perhaps they were just waiting." Similar conversations happened on 1,000 worlds. In the council chambers of the coalition, leaders argued about what had gone wrong. In the hidden bases of resistance movements, fighters celebrated a victory they had not won but greatly admired. In the academies of ancient species, scholars rewrote everything they thought they knew about humanity. On the Void Walkers, the oldest species in the galaxy, an elder council gathered to discuss the news. Their leader, a being of pure energy who had lived for 10,000 years, spoke first. "We watched the humans when they were young. We thought they would destroy themselves before they reached the stars. We were wrong." "They are dangerous," another council member said. "More dangerous than the coalition ever was. We should prepare for—" "Prepare for what?" the leader interrupted. "War. The humans did not start this conflict. They only defended themselves, and they showed mercy by letting the coalition leave." "Mercy today, what about tomorrow?" The leader paused, considering the question. "Tomorrow is unknown, but today humanity has earned something they never had before: respect, and perhaps in time something more." In the dark spaces between stars, ships of every species changed their routes. Trading vessels that would have traveled near Earth now took longer paths to avoid human space. Military scouts that would have observed the blue planet from a distance now kept far away. The galaxy was afraid, and in that fear there was silence. General returned to Coalition space 3 weeks after the failed invasion. His fleet was intact, but his reputation was not. He had been summoned to appear before the High Council, the ruling body that controlled the Coalition's military actions. The council chamber was a massive hall filled with representatives from 100 species. They watched in silence as walked to the center of the floor. "General," the High Speaker said, their voice echoed through the chamber. "You were sent to conquer Earth. You returned without firing a shot. Explain yourself." Stood straight and met the speaker's eyes. "I returned because fighting would have meant the destruction of our fleet. The humans possessed a weapon beyond anything we had anticipated." "One ship," the speaker said coldly. "They had one ship. One ship with the power to destroy us all." Activated a holographic display showing the in detail. "This vessel is 40 kilometers long. It carries 10,000 fighters. Its main weapons can crush our ships with gravitational force alone. Our entire fleet would have been destroyed in minutes." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Council members studied the images with growing unease. "How did they hide this from us?" another council member demanded. "We have watched Earth for 2 centuries. How did we miss something this large?" "Because they wanted us to miss it," said. "The humans are not primitive as we believed. They are patient, strategic. They allowed us to underestimate them while they prepared for this day." The High Speaker leaned forward. "What do you recommend, General?" Was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was tired but certain. "I recommend we leave Earth alone. We cannot defeat them with our current technology. Any attack would only provoke a response we cannot survive." "Leave them alone." The speaker's voice rose with anger. "The coalition has never retreated from any enemy. We have never shown weakness to anyone." "Then this will be the first time." Looked around the chamber at the representatives of 100 species. "The humans are not an enemy we can conquer. They are a power we must respect. If we do not, we will be destroyed." The debate continued for hours, but in the end, the council reached a decision. There would be no second invasion of Earth. Not now, perhaps not ever. Back on Earth, the celebrations continued for weeks. Cities that had hidden in fear now blazed with light. People who had prepared for death now danced in the streets. They became a symbol of hope, its image appearing on buildings and monuments around the world. President addressed the planet from the steps of the Global Assembly. Billions watched as she spoke. "Today we have proven something to the galaxy. Humanity is not weak. Humanity is not prey. Humanity is a species that will fight for its survival no matter the odds." She paused, letting her words settle. "But we are also a species that values peace. We did not fire a single shot today. We gave our enemy the chance to leave and they took it. This is who we are, strong enough to fight, wise enough to seek peace." The commander watched the speech from her quarters. They had taken up a permanent position in Earth's orbit, visible from the surface as a new star in the night sky. Lieutenant Bora knocked on her door. "Commander, Admiral is requesting a meeting. He wants to discuss the future." Nodded and stood. The future, a word that had seemed so uncertain just weeks ago, now held endless possibilities. She met in the Admiral's conference room on the Phoenix. Captain Minu and several other senior officers were already present. They gathered around a table displaying a map of the galaxy. "The coalition has retreated," said, "but they are not defeated. Our intelligence suggests they are already researching new weapons to counter the—" "How long before they develop something effective?" Minu asked. "Years, maybe decades, but eventually they will find a way." Tapped the display, highlighting several star systems. "We cannot wait for that to happen. We need to expand our defenses, build more, develop new technologies." Studied the map. "And what about the other species in the galaxy? Not all of them are our enemies." "No, they are not," nodded thoughtfully. "Some species have suffered under coalition rule for centuries. They may welcome an alternative, an alliance perhaps with humanity at its center. An alliance against the coalition. An alliance for freedom." Looked around the table. "The galaxy has been ruled by fear for too long. Species have been conquered, enslaved, destroyed. It does not have to be this way. Humanity has shown that it is possible to stand against the coalition and survive. Others may want to follow our example." The officers exchanged looks. It was a bold idea, perhaps too bold, but after what they had accomplished, nothing seemed impossible anymore. "It will take time," said finally. "Building trust across the galaxy will not happen overnight." "Time is something we now have," allowed himself a rare smile. "The silence that has fallen across the galaxy is not permanent. Eventually, the other species will start talking again. They will ask questions. They will seek us out. And when they do, we will be ready." That night, billions of humans looked up at the sky and saw the shining among the stars. It was a reminder of what they had accomplished, a promise of what they could become, a warning to anyone who would threaten their world. Across the galaxy, the silence continued. Species that had once ignored humanity now watched them with respect. Species that had once plotted to conquer Earth now made plans to avoid human space entirely. And species that had once dreamed of freedom now whispered to each other about the blue planet that had the coalition and won. The galaxy had changed. Humanity had changed it. And in the silence, Earth prepared for whatever came next. Admiral stood on the bridge of the Phoenix one last time, looking out at the stars. Captain Minu stood beside him. "Do you think they will ever forgive us?" Minu asked, "for making them afraid?" Considered the question. "Fear is not always a bad thing, Captain. Sometimes it teaches respect. Sometimes it prevents war. The galaxy is afraid of us now, and that fear will keep Earth safe for generations. And after that," smiled, "after that our children's children will find their own way. They will make their own choices. They will write their own stories." He turned to face Minu. "But they will start from a position of strength. That is all we can give them. That is enough." Minu nodded slowly. It was enough. It was more than enough. In the silence of the galaxy, Earth had spoken, and its voice had been heard.